Okay, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I am so pleased and happy to be here and just thrilled about the opportunity to come and talk to you guys about suicide loss and suicide prevention. And some people say, why would you want to go talk about that downer subject? And you know what? It starts with you people. That's the real reason I like it, is because there is nobody like a griever for knowing what's real, for knowing what's honest, for knowing what's important. And you are the people that I like being around for that reason. My name is Toni Plant, and I lost my daughter Anna to suicide on January 30th of 2016. She was 15 years old. Anna was a pretty normal kid. Oh, let me just back up by saying I practiced this last night. It was an hour long, and I'm really sorry. I'm going to try to cut parts out because that's just too long for anybody but me to care about. So we're going to get it cut back a little bit. But if you have questions afterwards, because I left anything out, be sure to come up to me, because I love, again, talking to grievers. My daughter Anna was adopted. She was adopted from Guatemala. We got her home at about 5 months old. She was adorable and teeny and just so sweet. She was born with a left side facial paralysis. It was like when she was sleeping, it looked like her left eye was open, but it was really shut. And her left side was kind of didn't smile as much. But she was adorable, and a lot of times you couldn't see that, although she always knew it was there. Her brother was adopted as well 2 years prior. His name is Leo. They are not biological twin kids, but they are obviously siblings who grew up together. Anna was a happy toddler. She was outgoing and would talk to everybody at the grocery store. Hi, my name is Anna. What's your name? She would call me Toni. Hi, this is Toni. Why I wasn't her mom at the grocery store, I have no idea. She would bring in bugs and tell me I was the evil queen and couldn't come to her birthday party if I made her stop watching Snow White. She was just a hoot. She was very determined, and we signed her up for everything. We knew she was kind of shy, but you do that with your kids. You sign them up for soccer and basketball, see what they're going to like, right? Soccer, basketball. She played the violin, she sang in choir, she went to church, Sunday school, she was confirmed, she did all the things. She was a Girl Scout. And she was kind of shy, and she sort of struggled. At the end of elementary school, she struggled quite a bit with relationships and with school. So this was extra difficult because her brother, everything came really easy for him. And I know that mattered to her quite a bit, and we tried to focus on that, but it was difficult. In middle school, things got even harder. She ended up, we put her in some counseling right away when we realized she was struggling. And we worked really hard at school. Some nights we'd have to re-educate her on everything she'd learned that day because she either didn't retain it or she didn't comprehend it the first time. So then in 8th grade, right the year before she started high school, she was really starting to struggle. In January of 2015, she went to soccer practice, and we got a call from her coach that said, you need to come and pick her up. She says she has a bad stomachache. So I went and picked her up, and I'm like this chronic, like everybody's good kind of person. Oh, you poor thing, you have the flu. Well, her dad came home and said, she's taken something. He's a lot wiser than me. So she had taken all the pills that she had. Little did I know, she had put them in her side of her mouth and brought them in her room and saved them instead of taking them when I was handing them to her in the morning. And these were her antidepressant medication. And so we brought her in. She went to Children's Hospital, and like someone I was just talking to said, very difficult to find a place or a bed for someone who's having a mental health crisis. And that was one of the first big lessons I learned, that our system really sucks at trying to figure that out. And so she went into United Hospital and ended up being put in Prairie Care for an outpatient program. 8th grade, she gets through the program. Then needless to say, if you try to kill yourself, you're going to get a label in school called emotional and behavior disorder. And so she got her IEP and was all set to go to high school. This summer, she played soccer again. She didn't want to do soccer anymore. She was kind of over from freshman year, her good friend Brooklyn said, let's play soccer this fall at school because they make it so nobody gets cut at Contra High School, which is great. They let all the girls be on the team so that they can meet people. So that's what they did. They got on the team in August of that year. They played, soccer and practice the whole time. Night before school starts, they had a game on the first day of school, so there was lots of chatter back and forth. What are we wearing tomorrow? What color, etc. Get to the school the next day, get to the game after school, and Brooklyn wasn't there. And I said, Anna, did Brooklyn not come to school today? Kind of weird on the first day of school. No, she didn't. Okay, next day Brooklyn wasn't at school either. So I was good friends with her mom, because they lived about a half a mile from us. And so I texted the mom and said, what's going on, and no answer. The following day was Thursday, and I was at work, and somebody came and knocked on my door and said, is this someone you know? It was a news story on her phone, and she said, looks like they live close to you. And it was Brooklyn's family, and their dad had killed all 3 kids, himself and his wife. You might remember that story. It was all over the news. They lived on Lake Minnetonka. We didn't. They lived in a really big house, but it was all over the news. And so Anna was, needless to say, they called us all to the school, and the guidance counselors and the principal and all those people were outside to tell the girls after the soccer game was over. Anna really struggled that first week. As you can imagine, these are adolescent girls, okay? They just lost, one of their best friends on the soccer team. Anna was distraught. She said, you know what, why Brooklyn? Why not me? I hate life. Brooklyn loved life. So we got, this was tough. Let me tell you, as a parent, this was really tough. Brooklyn had 2 older siblings. Brooklyn was a 9th grader. She had an older sibling who was a 10th grader, and one was a 12th grader. So that's 3 kids out of that high school at the same time. So we thought we got Anna through it. She spent a lot of time with the kids. The girls kind of mourned together. Obviously, they were grieving together that first week or 2. Then the funeral came. Then the first weekend after the funeral, sure enough, Anna tried to kill herself again. So she ended up back in Prairie Care. So she's in Prairie Care outpatient, and I was out east with my son going to look at colleges. And I get a call from my husband. She had taken a paper clip that she had found and started scratching herself. Well, they consider that self-harm, which rightfully so, it is self-harm. And they put her immediately in inpatient. So now she's in inpatient. Think what you want about inpatient. I think she met a lot of people that had really shitty attitudes, in my opinion. But I don't know what else you do with these people, right? Like I said, we're just bad at this. We need more structure. We need to know things. More things than we know. So we got her through all that. January comes around, she's kind of doing better. We're thinking, we're hopeful. She's in therapy, she's a psychiatrist, a counselor, group therapy at School for Grief, and all those things. So she's doing kind of better, so we're leaving her home a little while. In the meantime, we had locked up all the pills, all the knives, all the sharp objects, everything in a lockbox. And they were at our home all the time that way. So in January, she's doing better. We're starting leaving her alone a little bit at a time. So one Saturday, she and I were the only ones home. Leo was up north at a choir retreat. My husband was at work. He's in the hospitality industry, where he is today also. And Anna and I were home alone. We started talking about spring break. Where are we going to go on spring break? Big problem for Anna, because Anna did not like being hot. And Anna did not like walking a lot. So this was a problem for spring break, because you can't really go to the beach and you can't really go to a city. And it was Leo's senior year, so we were trying to figure out what to do. Well, she wasn't happy, but you know what, you guys, she was 15. You know what, we argued, I shouldn't even say argued, we had conversations that were like that frequently. I had no idea. So I said, well, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'll walk the dogs every day. And then when I get home, we'll go to church. Because I did that every week. If they went to church with me at 5 o'clock, then we would go out for dinner. Otherwise, we would eat dinner at home. If they didn't go to church, it was a little bribe. So I went for a walk. 15 minutes later, I got home and she was already dead. Of course, I had no way knowing that would happen. Of course, if I had known, I wouldn't have gone. That was the biggest, and if any of you have been in that predicament, I was in so much shock, I hardly to this day, and this is 10 years ago, I can hardly remember really what happened. I know I called my sister first. Why? Who knows? Because she was at church and I knew she wouldn't answer. I called her first, then I called my husband, who said, you need to call 911. Of course, you're just out of it. At least I was. I could not think about what to do next. So finally 911 got there, and we got to the hospital, and she was in ICU, and the doctor said, we can keep her alive overnight, and there's a possibility that her brain might shrink a little bit, and she will have some sort of a chance. And so I said, yes, of course, as any mother would, we're going to do that. And then all the people started coming. And when I say that, I say it with so much love, because Leo's friends came, our friends came, my family came, Anna's friends came, the principal at the high school came, our pastor came, everybody came to the hospital to support us, and that's one thing I've really learned throughout this whole thing. Dang it, sorry. Is that, you know what? People are so damn nice. They just they really, really step up to support you. And they came, we all stayed overnight, woke up in the morning, well, I didn't sleep, I'm sure, but I woke up in the morning, the doctor said nothing had changed. And so we decided we needed to take her off life support. And so a bunch more people came back down, and I knew that a bunch of the kids from the Minnetonka High School concert choir were going to meet at our church to sing the choral benediction, which is a song they ended every concert with at Minnetonka. And so they did that. They met there and they FaceTimed that song to us. We played it for Anna, and then we took her off life support. The song goes, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and give you peace. And I thought, yay, somebody's given us peace. We really effing need it. My brother, the day before when all this happened, I posted on social media. I'm a huge social media person. Not that I think everybody reads my stuff, but because I don't really care if they read it or not. It's cathartic for me, and so you can get some people behind you that way. So I had posted, pray, please pray, we need a miracle. That morning after Anna was taken off life support, my brother Tom said to me, our miracle might not have worked last night, but I think Anna's did. She's at peace now. And I've kept that with me for quite some time, because it's the only way that I could feel like at least something good maybe came out of it. On January 31st, the day we came home from the hospital, the house filled up again. Another 100 people or so came over. They brought food, they brought beverages, they brought cards, they brought money, they brought Kleenex and all that good stuff a lot of you are familiar with. And and all those so nice people are still there in your life, but you know what happens after some point? They go away, and you all know that. Writing was always something for me that I did when it came to Anna's death, and usually it's not very good, but again, I don't really care. But I did write this at one point a few years after she died. Once it happens, you no longer live in a world where everyone else lives. It's your own world now, where the things that used to bother you no longer do. And the things that matter to you now are things like learning how to find new purpose in life and figuring out how you might ever be able to experience joy again. And I think that's true, because I always said, if I ever lost a child, I would never survive. And you know what? I don't think I did. I think I'm a new me. I'm a whole different me who spends time thinking about how to make meaning out of the fact that my daughter died by suicide. So then all the first happened. You want to know what happened at our house? This is really crappy. So my daughter dies January 30th, and then 2 weeks later, January 16th, we're back in the hospital, February 16th, we're back in the hospital, and my mom's on life support. She had given us a strict rule to never save her life again. DNR, don't do it. So it was time we had to take her off life support, so we pulled out that same choral benediction. We played it for her, and she died as soon as it was over. So there was another funeral. That was the first funeral I had after Anna died. And then there was the first spring break, which went well, because I was with my family, my rock, my brother, his wife, my sister, her husband, all the kids. There was about 6 kids between the ages of, I think, 11 or 12 and 18 that were kind of the 6 cousins that were always together. The oldest was my son Leo, and Anna was kind of in the middle. And then, because we get through all these firsts, what happens? They stay dead. We think them dying is the worst, but then they stay dead. And then all those people aren't necessarily around. And so you're there to do it on your own. And you're there to try to figure out how you're going to live, how you're going to make it through your life. And I knew that I didn't know how. And so the one thing I had the wherewithal to try to figure out was how to do it. And I knew I had to learn about it to do that. I knew I had to find the lessons that I needed to learn. So I started reading everything I could find. And I learned a lot of things about suicide. It was really important for me to know things about suicide because I needed to understand what was going through her brain. And the first thing I learned that I want to share with you is that nobody takes their own life because they're selfish. People die by suicide because they want to stop the pain. And this has actually been proven by a couple different people Kevin Hines is one man who wrote a book called Crack Not Broken. He's the man who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and he survived. He says the minute he jumped, he wished he had changed his mind, or he had changed his mind and wished he hadn't done it. We had a woman in one of my suicide loss support groups who was going to take her own life. She told me the only thing she was thinking about the whole time was stopping the pain. She loved her parents, nothing to do with them, nothing to do with her friends, her siblings, nothing to do with anybody but stopping the pain that was going on inside of her brain. And that gave me a little bit of comfort, although really sad when you think about how much pain your person must have been in to want to take their own life. But also some comfort in knowing, they didn't do it because they hated me. They didn't do it because I was a terrible mom. She did it because she couldn't stop the pain that was in her life. So they say that the ton of bricks that falls on your shoulders after someone dies by suicide doesn't go away, but you do get stronger shoulders. And I do believe that. And so I set out to find out how to build those stronger shoulders. And I realized that one of the ways for me was to, again, read, go to groups. I found a great suicide loss support group, which I highly recommend if that's a thing for you. You don't have to say anything, or you can say as much as you want. Of course, if you're in a group with me, you might not have a chance to say anything. Kidding. Okay, but I did learn right away from that group that all of the shoulda, woulda, couldas in the world are not going to make any difference. It's not your fault. Because they say that dying by suicide is caused by a whole bunch of different things. I don't know if you're as old as me, but we had this game when I was younger called Straw That Broke the Camel's Back, I think it was called. So it's this plastic camel with baskets on the side, and then you would put little straws in it, and then the person put the last one in, it would break, and that would be the end. And I likened Anna's suicide to that, because there were so many things that had happened to her in her life. For one, she was adopted, which is a trauma response right there. She struggled with her face and her facial paralysis. She struggled in school. She struggled with friends. I think there was a little bullying going on at times. And so you know what? That whatever happened that day might not have been my argument with her, but I'm never going to know that. So why think it was my fault that is what happened? Because I'm never going to know the answer. So the shoulda, woulda, couldas, that was one thing. And then I learned that there's no right or wrong way to do grief. There's no 5 stages of grief. The Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who talks about the 5 stages, she's even since admitted that that's not what she made them for. She made them to deal with someone dying. That was the 5 stages of death for someone who was dying. So that's since come out. And so we got to remember that suicide loss can be, or any loss can be like high, low, high, low. I mean, you can be like way high, like having great, and then all of a sudden one day, as most of you guys know, you can wake up and go, I ain't getting out of bed today. And that's fine, and that's okay, and that's how everybody is. It's not a contest either. So someone that knew your person but didn't know him that well, they might have just as much loss. Maybe they did something that really makes them feel guilty about you with your person. And you know what? That's okay. That's their grief, and that's all right. I remember there's a couple little girls who felt like they weren't that good of friends with Anna, so some of the other people were like, oh, they shouldn't feel so sad about it. I'm like, we don't have the right to say that. They might feel that way just because they feel that way. So I learned that for sure. And one of the main things, and I believe this with life, you guys, is that if you can learn to feel two things at one time, that's going to be key to you feeling better. If you can figure out a way to have distress and joy at the same time, or sorrow and gratitude at the same time, it's key. It's not easy. It's not something we think should be, but when you're a suicide loss survivor and all you're doing is just blubbering all the time, you gotta figure out a way to put it in a little box and set it aside for a little while until you're ready to come back to it. And then I gotta say, you gotta find some hope. And I don't know how people do that if they don't have any kind of a faith, but if they do, they find the hope. And I'm saying to you right now, if you don't have any hope right now, find some. And one thing they do say is gratitude begets hope. So if you are having trouble finding it, say 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 things a day that you're grateful for, and it will help. And you need to find some strength, because in order to get to the hope part, you gotta have enough strength to hang on until it comes. And find your people. Some of those people are probably here, actually I'm sure they are. And those are your people. I know when I walked into my suicide support group, it was like, oh my God, these people get me. They understand what I'm doing, how I'm feeling. I went to a couple different grief support groups. They were great, learned a lot about grief. Those people did not get me. So it was a whole different thing. And then I'm gonna tell you, there is no drug in this world that will make you feel better than doing good things for other people. None. Anything. It doesn't make any difference. Anything. You can have it be, I have a woman from my suicide loss group who, she goes to the grocery store and she brings candy. And if somebody opens the door for her, she gives them a piece of candy. She says, thanks for being kind. And you know what, that's, whatever it is, I just can't recommend it enough. We started early by giving money to organizations, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do that too, that are suicide loss survivors. You maybe did it at the funeral, like whatever money you got, you maybe donated to, I don't know, we send ours to SAVE, the Suicide Awareness Voices of Education, or NAMI, or AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We did, like, and we thought outside the box. We're still doing it, by the way. That first year, Leo was in theater, my son, so he was in the musical that spring, and at the end of the play, he was one of the leads, so at the end of it, he stepped out in front of the curtain, and he said, on Broadway, the actors go out and collect money for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. So tonight, we're coming out into the audience, and we're gonna collect money for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And we're gonna do that because my sister took her own life a few months ago, and we collected $8,000 and sent it off. And so we did it as often as we could. I do it by doing the grief support group facilitations that I've done. I still meet with those people, and I just told myself I'm gonna say yes. So when Rob called me and said, can you come and talk? I just said yes, because that's what I do, I'll say yes. Of course, you gotta take care of yourself. We all know about that. Do the things that are good for you. And you need to make meaning. And that's not just the fundraiser, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, Finding Meaning. It's by a guy named David Kessler, who's a really renowned grief person. He actually worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross before she died. The book talks about how to make meaning out of your person's life. And you know, it can be anything, you know, as well as I do. It can be wearing red, it can be getting a bracelet. I have mine for Anna. It can be getting a tattoo. I know I've seen quite a few of those. I got an Anna one with a semicolon at the end, which means to me that her story will never be over. I will keep talking about her and mental health and suicide prevention forever. Then a few years later, I got an I love you one because I found her handwriting in a note, and I was able to get a tattoo of that. And then on the 10th anniversary, the 10th Thaniversary, my new word I learned in the last few years. Thaniversary stands for the day that your person died. So the death date is a Thaniversary. Her brother Leo and my husband and I all went and got smiley face tattoos, the same one. And so those are obviously really good ways to do it, or you can make a podcast like me, totallygotoutofbed.com. Feel free to listen. Me and a friend of mine from Grief Support Group started that during COVID. There's about 30 episodes on it, and I gotta say, I started listening to it again recently. It's pretty good. Not even kidding. I mean, we just talk like this, and we swear a lot more. I noticed there's some kids here, so I'm kind of, put that back, but it's really true. You want to keep your person's spirit alive, you want to talk about your person. And maybe you don't because it's too soon. But you know what? Here's my thought on it by now. I want to talk about her, and you know why? I want to talk about her because I got no news stories about Anna. I only have old stories about Anna. So those are the stories I want to tell. So if you're a person who supports someone who's lost someone to suicide, ask about them. What was that person like? What were they like? What did they love to do? I'll tell you, Anna loved red. She wore red high top tennis shoes all the time. So because there's like this, everything over the top. And I always wanted to be the best mom of a suicide loss victim that I can be. I was determined that I was going to be the best I could possibly be. So one year for Christmas, I gave all my whole family this little red high top tennis shoe glass Christmas ornament. One year I gave them all angels with a little semicolon that I drew on it. I just kind of like come up with stuff on occasion, and I do that just for me, because it's for me, it's cathartic for me. So I think what I've learned overall is that the work of a griever is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other. How much sorrow can I hold? That's how much gratitude I can hold. You know, I just said that Anna was a victim, and I'm going to tell you my very favorite lesson to learn about suicide, and I really want you to remember it. Anna was a victim of suicide. She was a victim of a brain that turned against her and a system that couldn't help her. And I truly believe that with all my heart. Suicide loss survivors, if you look at it that way, it makes a lot more sense. I talk about that broken brain, and I'm going to tell you that little story for me too, is that when a person has a broken brain, they have nothing to tell it to get help. When you have a broken leg, your brain tells you to go get help for your broken leg. When you have a broken brain, there's nothing to tell you that it can't get better and that your brain should be fixed. So I want to leave you with one of my final thoughts. It's something that I wrote relatively recently, and it goes like this. As time goes by, life brings us new things, even good things. But lessening the pain of our losses is a forever struggle. So the new and the beautiful coexist with the tragic, and we are grateful and joyful, but we're still heartbroken. Thanks so much for having me. Follow me on social media if you have a thing like that, because this is really all I ever talk about. I also have a couple things coming up that I'm doing for suicide prevention. My son, I think I told you, is in New York. He's he's a waiter, let's face it. But he's an aspiring actor. And we're doing a little cabaret at one of the places you can rent out. And we are putting on a cabaret of songs that these kids, well, they're young adults, have chosen that give them strength or talk about their mental health struggles, and all the proceeds for that will go to the AFSP. So that's on September 10th. You can buy a live stream to it if you're interested, but I'm not here selling that. That's beside the point. So thanks once again, and smile if you can, cry if you have to. Thanks.